hundreds of students transition into PM and also help them continue to get promoted as a product leader. And in both categories, I see them facing different challenges. But in total, almost everyone has the number one challenge in terms of, hey, I don't have end-to-end product management experience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kenton Kavestu. I'm an ex-Googler, an ex-BCG consultant, and the founder of RocketBlocks, an online platform that helps candidates prepare for interviews. Today, we're sitting down with Dr. Nancy Lee, who is the founder of Product Manager Accelerator. She has been featured in Forbes. She is a graduate of the MIT Sloan School of Management and a former director of product herself. And a cool thing I just learned about Product Manager Accelerator is that they also have a nonprofit wing, which donates a free PM class for everyone that goes through the program that they can donate to a teenager from a middle or low income family. So Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Kenton. I'm so glad to share anything I know with your audience.
Awesome. And we are going to be talking about a topic that I think is near and dear to your heart, Nancy, which is breaking into product management and a few different angles on that. So I want to go ahead and just jump right in. And the first question I have for you is, I know that you have helped a lot of former consultants, people that have worked at places like Bain or EY Parthenon, Accenture, et cetera, break into product management. And I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about what you see as some of the unique challenges that people from that background breaking into product management face and how they can overcome those challenges.
Yeah, great question. Actually, you're right. And yourself also specialize in management consulting and also PMs. I've seen both of us see something similar regarding, hey, in the past, lots of people want to become a consultant and later on they feel like, whoa, the lifestyle wasn't as good, and then they want to transition to PM. So the main thing I've seen is I put them into two different categories. One category is strategic consultant, like BCG and McKinsey type. The other category is more execution implementation type, which is I call them tier 2 or whatever you guys call them, like EY, or we can cut off tier 2 or EY and EY, EY, Deloitte, PwC, those kind of different like accounting consulting type of consulting, advisory type of consulting companies. And I have a coach, hundreds of students transition into PM and also help them continue to get promoted as a product leader. And in both categories, I see them facing different challenges. But in total, almost everyone has the number one challenge in terms of, hey, I don't have end-to-end product management experience. That's the number one thing they see. And then all of a sudden, like, wow, when they go into interviews, we're challenged, saying, hey, tell me your end-to-end product management experience. From a time when you turn a product from concept to execution, what did you do in the process? And those, especially for McKinsey, BCG type of consultants, they have bigger challenges because they're very strategic. They go in, they create amazing, like, deck and plus strategy, and later on they never really implement it because it's too expensive to hire them to do the implementation, to be frank. And then they say they only talk about strategy side. It's very hard for them to really talk about the implementation side because in general it doesn't happen as often as the second group of consultant. Now let's talk about second group of consultant. I have lots of students, actually second group, in terms of Deloitte, EY type of consultant. They actually had relatively easier time to transition into PM because usually they were hired to do implementation more often than strategy side. But even if they do implementation, they never do everything end to end either. They maybe only work with engineers to figure out some software product, and then they stopped. And then they work on separate product saying that, oh, let's do GTM, and they stopped. So the general challenge for all of them is they never do everything end to end. So that's why in the interview, they find it quite challenging just to convince others they can do the PM work.
And how, so I agree, there is that challenge because the nature of consulting work, regardless of whether you're at MBB or sort of EY, Deloitte, Accenture, is you're hired to do a specific thing. And it's, usually 9-12 weeks, and the company is paying good money for one thing, and so that's what you do. And
very
like
good
GTM,
money.
or maybe it's like implementing this new, ERP system or whatever it is. So completely agree with that point. How do you coach candidates, students that you're working with to overcome that? Like, what is the right way if that's the experience you have.
Yeah. So actually we have our own unique framework and we call the product portfolio framework. The way it works is number one thing, they need to change their mindset to understand, to admit, I've never done everything end-to-end, which is true. And they also admit that experienced interviewer like us can understand that. Because like, well, you're missing this, missing that. Like to us, 2 seconds, we know you're missing something, right? And then admit that you're missing something. And also the other side of the table can recognize. And after knowing that, we use portfolio strategy, which means that you first need to understand what the end-to-end product management is about, which is starting from ideation and work with engineers and to create some product and also design a go-to-market strategy. We call the 3 phases. Within each phases, you have smaller steps like customer interview in the ideation phase, building MVP in the middle ground, and also pricing strategy, go-to-market strategy, and everything. That's basically the 10 different steps goes into each phases in total. And then you do a checklist. Basically, you identify how much of your past project can put into this checklist, and then you do a complete checklist check. Maybe you have done 70% of the entire product portfolio 10 things, and that's amazing. Even if not one project have done all the 70%, but let's say 3 or 5 projects together, total hit 70%, and then you're only missing 30%, and that's better than nothing. And usually when you go into an interview, the interviewer understands, saying that, well, nobody knows everything end to end. When I myself came from engineering background, I literally didn't know GTM, and my manager knew it when he hired me, and he was like, we understand you don't know GTM, but you can learn it. That's your weakness, but your strength is you know how to work with engineers, a very good public speaking, presenting, encouraging them. Just pick up some side things about GTM later on, but you work on the product first and you catch up later on. So all the interviewer, your hiring manager know it. But if you don't know how to present, you actually can master the 70%, you're in trouble. So that's why you do the comparison, learn it first and compare. Another second thing I want to tell all the candidates, especially consultant out there, is that ideally it's okay. You don't have one product that do everything end to end. All consultant every 2 to 3 months you change project, right? So you may have maybe 10 different things, but each one hit one of each of the checklists I mentioned, and it's okay. And in the interview, you just know how to defend yourself. When they ask you, hey, tell me a product end to end, and you said, well, one product only went through 2 out of 3 phases. And then the third one you can just mention, towards the end, I work with sales marketing team to design a go-to-market strategy. Of course, they're mainly doing the true execution of the sales strategy. But I'm the one who passing all the product information, helps them to launch the product. Eventually, we together was able to launch ABCD product with this kind of impact. Yeah, so it depends on how you tell the end-to-end stories from the angle of product manager. Yeah,
I think that resonates with me. And there's a couple things that I would highlight and pull out. I think one that you said that's important, and it was up front, so I'll call it out again, there's a little bit about mindset there, right? It's like recognizing like, hey, I have a lot of good experience, but I may not have worked on one product end to end. And so rather than trying to BS your way through that, which is always sort of obvious to most interviewers, you just say like, look, okay, like I haven't done end to end on one project, and then you've got your checklist exercise that you're talking about in the portfolio, which I think makes a lot of sense. And then I think the last part is, like the reality is most credible and I think reasonable interviewers will know that every candidate has certain strengths and weaknesses and certain things that they have done over and over and over again and hopefully are going to be great at and hit the ground running, and some things that they're just not going to know as much. And as long as you have enough of those strengths and can sell your sort of unique value prop, it's okay that you're like, okay, hey, like I'm a little weaker on GTM, but like here's how I can pick it up, or here's some evidence I've got that I'm interested in doing it, we'll learn on the job, etc.
Yeah, exactly. It's very funny. The first time regarding GTM, here's how I conquer these challenges. Hey guys, you can just repeat the same thing, model the same thing. I came from engineering background. Oh, by the way, I was a systems engineer working for Shell Oil. I even have like pictures of me like wearing hard hat on oil rigs. Can you imagine, like jumpsuit, like
Did you actually
Shell
work
Oil
on an
was a
oil
little-
rig?
Yeah, I went
Oh,
there.
nice.
Yeah, it's crazy. And mind blown. I didn't like it. Anyway, but later on I transferred to like, let me design the robotic system for people on oil rig because I don't like it. So they transfer to an office so that I can actually design any kind of engineering tools for them. But anyway, it was crazy. And then in order to transition into product management, first of all, I learned product management knowledge, actually from MIT. And later on, I said, whoa, what I did when I was at Shell Oil has this kind of transferable skills. And all of these can be directly translated into product management language. But I still have one huge challenge, which is I literally don't know GTM. I was someone working on oil rigs, it's like just no GTM doesn't exist in my life at all.
You're way upstream from the
very upstream, exploring where the oil reservoir is. Crazy. Anyway, and then you come back, and say, wow, how can I demonstrate? At least I'm interested. How can I demonstrate at least, what I know GTM? So what I did was actually I started my own side project, which is also going back to portfolio mindset. Yep. I started to sell jewelry on Etsy. So funny. So I started to sell jewelry on Etsy. So things like trading, like buying jewelry from China. So I'm buying jewelry from China, selling to US market and overcharge them because everything made in China very cheap and sell them for lots of money. And then I put on my resume. Typical. And then I told them this, and on my resume, I said, well, you know what? I know GTM. That B2B or the B2C business is very, very different. Of course, like my jewelry business actually went out of business. We are losing money eventually. But it's just a way for me to bridge the gap, telling them, well, not my strengths, I know it. But I've done something similar. I'm in the process of exploring the part I don't know, but my strength is this, but I can do it very well. That's the reason they hired me. My manager literally told me that after I was hired, it's like we interviewed so many people, we select you. It's like right choice.
Yeah. So a couple things that I'll call out there. One, I think, if you take a step back and you think from the interviewer's perspective, most of these companies, they essentially are hiring for a basket of skills, right? There's someone on the other end of the table, and they are thinking either mentally or on paper on their computer, and they're saying like, how's this person doing in product design, and how's this person doing in analytics, and do we think they have enough GTM experience? And they're just checking those boxes. So like ultimately, your goal is to just show them that you check a lot of those boxes and really strongly. And so it's just like, hey, practice and get good at demonstrating those skills that the company cares about. And then the other thing is, right, like, if you don't have a particular skill, you don't have anything on your resume that points to it, like GTM in your case, just pick up a side project. Like no one needs to give you permission to do that. Like you can start your own jewelry business. You can, I at one point started building like a mobile app, and that helped me in various PM interviews where people were like, well, you don't, have a CS degree. And like, how do we know you can talk to engineers and code? When I was like, well, I hired this engineer that went to Johns Hopkins and we built this mobile app together and I PM'd it. And immediately, like all the questions they're like, oh, that's cool. Like, oh, can I download it? Can I see it? Like the conversation will totally change from you don't have the skill we're looking for to like, oh, how did you do that? Like, tell me, they just get interested, which is great. Like that's sort of what you want. You don't want to be trying to be like, no, I swear I can do this.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I have a very inspiring story from one of my students. And it's crazy. She actually quit her job in January. But she was doing sales, and for startup, she hates it. And one day she was like, let me just quit my job. But she didn't know the market was very competitive. She heard big tech company lay off, but she worked for startup. She wasn't working for Google laying off. She just wasn't really like, with startup, Google lay off, it shouldn't be overlap as much with sounds. And she quit her job. It's like, holy crap, it is real. Nobody can land a job, not even startups, just like no jobs, holy crap. And then she freaked out. And then later on, she was like, you know what? Let me just try to make it happen. Especially, to be frank, lots of my students like me, they're all immigrant. We need H-1B sponsorship, right? All the like visa To her, she need to actually land the next job within 3 months before she's able to do like transfer, different kind of stuff. The whole she only 3 months deadline to lose her visa. And then she actually ended up landing her first PM job within 2.5 months and transition from supply chain industry into the renewable energy industry. The way she did is also starting from the first month, immediately do part portfolio, and then use the networking strategy, pitch herself to hiring manager, different things. And she also brought out her product portfolio in the first round of interview. And the hiring manager said, wow, oh, you know, this, amazing. And she's doing sales. She doesn't really know how to code, but the whole package really helps her stand out. I believe this is someone who's doing sales. Lots of smart consultant, like your audience at BCG or EY, they're smarter than most people out there. Anyway, they know how to do it. It's more about you learn the best strategy and you really have the right mindset, understand what you are lacking. And I think nowadays the market is too competitive. It's not about passing the interview, because passing the interview in the past, maybe you do a case study. Right now, they will ask you specific skills. Have you done this? Have you done that? So the bar is much higher nowadays.